If you didn't know what Temu was before watching this video, consider yourself lucky, but I promise you, it probably wouldn't have been for much longer because this is an online shop launched less than a year ago and has since taken over the internet. You would think it's helping people, providing some sort of necessary service, or maybe solving some of the world's most pressing issues that we're facing. But no, it's just an online store full of trash. And most of the content that you've seen from Temu online is likely either an ad or sponsored because they will harass you until you say yes to them or block them, but then they'll just get a different email and continue sending you emails. I don't think I'm exaggerating when I say I get an email from them almost every other day to sponsor this channel. They're obviously confused. Unfortunately, the same can't be said for other creators that have higher numbers in their bank account but clearly lower standards. And we absolutely should be calling out creators who are multi-millionaires promoting a site like this as if they would ever use it if they weren't being paid to say so, but we'll get deeper into that later. And so far, maybe you're thinking, okay, Shelby, so it's another online shop for cheap shit. Big deal, we've seen it before. Why do you care how other people spend their money? It's their money. I'm gonna explain to you why I care, but also explain to you why you should care. Let's get the basics out of the way. The reason that Temu bothers me more than a lot of other online shops is because their prices are artificially lower. And there are several reasons that we're gonna get into, but that's why it bothers me, because the prices that you're seeing are not even realistic. That's not even what something is worth. And there's something to be said for making people think that other people are selling things for higher prices just because. The point is, Temu's prices being artificially lower than what something is worth is leading to mass amounts of consumerism. And these things that Temu is selling are largely things that are going to end up as waste. They are things that are mostly novelty items that are going to end up in the trash within the next 30 days. And I care about that because I care about people. I care that people are essentially being scammed. I care that people are essentially giving money to an incredibly unethical business. I care that people are draining their bank accounts for shit. But I also very much care that we are creating so much waste and creating so many goods in the first place. That's why I care how other people are spending their money, and that's why I decided to make this video. But let me explain something to you, because even if your defense of Temu is,
well, the things I buy on there, I'm not throwing them away. I didn't buy these little finger hands so that I could just pet my cat with them and it would lose its novelty within the next 2 minutes and throw it away. No, that's not me. I don't send these things to landfill, so I'm good, right?
Unfortunately, no, you're wrong.
That is not correct.
I present to you my spiel, which if you've never heard this before, you should probably hit the subscribe button. You're gonna need to hang around. Sustainability is about a lot more than just the end of that product's life cycle. Really, when we talk about sustainability, that idea is that we could sustain the activities we are doing on the earth that we have to live on. We only have one earth. And the issue with consumerism, with things like this and at this level, is that we cannot sustain those things on the earth with the resources that the earth provides us. I've seen some of the silliest things during my research for this Temu video, but let's just take the thing that kind of took over TikTok, the little hand finger puppet things.
Pretty sure this is the best purchase I've ever made in my life.
It's probably made from plastic, right? Do you know where plastic comes from? It's oil. There are endless amount of issues with oil production that I don't really think need to be explained. Climate change, that leads to just about every other environmental crisis we've ever seen. Oil spills, water contamination, all the animals that die in the oil spills, taking over people's land to drill on it. And yeah, we can think about the fact that that product that will only be used for maybe the next week or so is going to be on this planet longer than you or I. The way we interact with our environment, with the world, it's going to have an impact on all of us. And if you don't care, maybe seek therapy because you got some issues with empathy. But brands like Temu and Shein pose a particular problem because of their sketchy business practices and the way that they go about business.
So these are considered the size small claw clips. Again, they come in the neutral colors. This is the color, so they come in for $1.79 for all of them. $1.79 for all of these. This is another item I've seen like around for so much money for no reason. They're just hair clips. Love it.
So items that aren't sold on Temu that are more expensive than they are on Temu, they're not just priced higher for the fuck of it. They're not just priced higher for no reason. And I think that when you're being paid to do a job and you either don't understand that, like you're going into this job explaining this website to someone and you don't understand why their prices are artificially lower, or you do know and you just don't care to address it, I think that's really fucking problematic. According to this Wired article that I found during my research, they are actually literally losing money, on average $30 per order. Why the fuck would they do this, you ask? Because they want to make a name for themselves in the American market. I'm going to read you some pieces from a couple of these articles that I read during my research, and I really think it's important to know when we're talking about why is everybody else charging so much more than Temu? They don't have to, it doesn't make sense. As they're actively attempting to take over the US market, we need to be keeping these things in mind. So, how are their prices so low? What's making them lose $30 per order? How does that make any sense? Most businesses operate at a loss for the first couple years. This is just an astronomically bigger cost that's also going to have a cultural impact in the US. So some of the people who manufacture their goods spoke in this article, and they remained anonymous for fear of losing their livelihoods. We're working for Temu for free so that Temu can attract more American customers, says Sandy. Many of these manufacturers have tried to go direct to US market using Amazon, but the gimmicks that they have habitually used to attract buyers on these Chinese platforms, such as offering discounts or freebies in exchange for positive reviews, violated Amazon's rules. You know it's bad when what you're doing is so unethical. Amazon won't support it. Another seller joined the Temu platform but soon found that he had little control over pricing. Temu will often ask him to lower his prices, and if he agrees, the platform will decide what the lower price is. You don't have a say over it. If you are not willing to lower the prices, they are likely to remove your product from their listings. This is absolutely disgusting to me, but really disturbing when you think about the fact that Temu wants to take over the market, right? And they have taken over a lot of it. We're gonna see some numbers for that in just a second. But when you think about the fact that basically what Temu is wanting to do is have the lowest price where you can find something, so they are telling their producers to take on the cost of producing that item at a loss so they can achieve that goal of everyone thinking that Temu is the best place to shop because it's cheap. And then once Temu takes over enough of the US market, those sellers won't be able to compete with the way that they've done business here, essentially putting a lot of people out of business for producing goods that Temu needs to sell. It's very exploitative and not ethical in any sense of the word to do that to people. But that's not the only way that Temu is short-sighting society and making their prices artificially cheaper. They're also taking advantage of US tax loopholes. The de minimis rule can be implemented by governments in various areas such as custom duties, sales tax, or income tax. These rules help streamline administrative processes and exempting low-value transactions from taxation. For example, some countries may have de minimis thresholds for online purchases from foreign sellers. Now, I can see how some people would be like, now how is this business skirting taxes hurting the population? I personally think that if you're taking advantage of being able to take money out of a society without giving any back to it, that's an ethical issue right there. I mean, we talk about all the time how billionaires not paying their taxes is not them contributing to society in the same way that they take from it. But more specifically, to make it more tangible and nitty-gritty, when companies like Temu are able to use our roads to ship their products without ever having to contribute to paying for them, well, yeah, I think that's unethical, because guess who has to pay for it? You and me. They use our roads, our ports, our waste facilities, all while skirting the cost of having to pay for any of it. And let's not forget that the US was built on the idea that anybody could come here and make it, right? It's the American dream. We were built off of the idea of small businesses. But small businesses can't compete with huge brands that are able to skirt the same taxes and fees that they have to pay for. And to me, the nitty-gritty of this just feels like they're honestly stealing from US citizens. But let me tell you how much they're stealing from US citizens, because it's shocking. The report found that brands which garner most of their customer base from social media are likely responsible for over 30% of packages shipped daily to the US under a so-called de minimis provision. In order for them to take advantage of this de minimis rule, the orders just have to be under $800. The imports accounted for nearly 600,000 shipments a day as of last year and are likely higher now, according to the findings. Lawmakers argue that the tariff violation gives Temu and Shein an unfair advantage over US retailers because Temu's valuation is estimated at over $100 billion, while Shein is recently valued at $64 billion. And to give you some context of how much money US citizens are missing out on because of this in taxes, American retailers pay millions of dollars in duties a year. Clothing brand Gap paid $700 million in 2022, H&M paid $205 million, and wedding retailer David's Bridal paid over $17 million that year. So to put that into perspective, a brand that launched less than a year ago is worth over $100 billion. And brands that are worth far, far less are paying upwards of $700 million in 1 year in taxes. And this brand that is taking advantage, again, of all of our resources and taking money out of our economy and out of our society is giving nothing back to it. And I do just want to clarify that I do not think that the majority of people who are shopping on Temu are people who absolutely need to depend on the lowest priced item. I understand that we have a really serious problem right now with cost of living, with wages being stagnant, with inflation being insane. But a company doesn't get to be worth $100 billion in less than a year because of people who are buying necessities on there. Not only that, but Temu sells very few necessities, okay? Just doing my research and looking at other creators who did hauls from Temu on things that just no one, it doesn't need to exist, let alone you need to buy it from Temu if you're low income. The company's long-term target is for Americans to purchase 30 times per year from Temu with an average order size of $50, meaning each user spends an average of $1,500 a year. And because they're mega wealthy and have decided they want to take over the market, they have the money and therefore the power to be able to do that. And that should be concerning to you no matter who you are. As long as you have enough money, you can take over the market, our thinking, our habits, our culture, our understanding of how economics works. They have the money and therefore the power to have influence over the masses. And that should honestly concern every single person watching this video. To me, this just signifies billionaires being able to do whatever they want because they have the money to do it. Now, honestly, I thought more people were starting to pay attention to sustainability, so it does make me wonder how a brand like Temu doing such sketchy business practices and obviously overproducing things that end up as waste, and obviously if anybody understands how much goes into something before you buy it, there's no way to call Temu a sustainable business. But I think that Temu knows that enough people care about that they have been trying to greenwash. I got this comment recently and I just want to read it for you because it's actually so angering to me. I ended up making a Temu purchase because all the sellers I could find were drop shipping. There was a $15 minimum, so I was trying to only get things that I would actually use. Once I got to checkout, Temu again asked me to add stuff. I said no. Then I get a notification that I should really add more stuff so that I can reduce my carbon emissions and make my parcel fuller. Temu is gross, preying on people who aren't conscious consumers. I want you to think about the average shopper on Temu, right? Because in my mind, it's either older teens, like somewhere between 13 and 20, I think is likely their target demographic. Now think of that person who is like baseline caring about the environment, right? They know it's important, they believe in climate change, they want to be more sustainable like most people who are younger do. And they see a notification like that and they don't really understand it, but they're being told that if they buy more shit, it's better for the environment. Oh God, okay. I think it's disgusting. I think being able to use phrases like that and words like that and marketing like that should be illegal. It's literally detrimental to the state of our planet. I said in the description box of my last video that I was doing the research on this video as I was uploading that video. If you haven't seen it, go check it out. And I wrote in the description box that my research was just making me so angry because everything I learned about this brand has made me so mad. Just because this company wants to turn a profit. Because $100 billion evaluation is just simply not fucking enough. Let's convince people to further degrade our environment by buying more shit to fill our landfills, to go in our oceans, to extract more resources from our planet. That's what we should do. Because you need that bottom line to keep going up and up and up. I mean, it makes me so angry. Another example of greenwashing came from a creator I was watching who wasn't sponsored. Let me tell you how hard it was to find people talking about Temu that wasn't sponsored on YouTube specifically. I'm sure there's a lot more on the dark side of TikTok, which I don't want to fuck up my algorithm by watching, but I don't remember their name. I'll leave it here on the screen, but they did see a little tagline in their email. Temu is committed to environmental sustainability. Like, why is that allowed? I feel like that's fucking false advertising. And isn't false advertising illegal? Why don't we have rules around this yet? But you know what? Honestly, because they're based in China and the laws, if we implemented them, would be based in the US, I don't know how that would work. I digress. Now, speaking of how hard it was to find people talking about Temu that weren't sponsored, let's talk about a couple creators who I know are multimillionaires and who I also know wear things that are designer and live way above, you know, normal middle class people that they're talking to on cameras. Let's talk about how they present this website and how fucking disappointed I am, especially multimillionaires like James Charles, who chose exploiting people and his audience and the planet for a check.
Before we even agreed to the sponsorship, because I really wanted to try everything out, I ordered, let me show you guys this. I ordered 48 items from Temu, and I spent a total of $156.71. 48 items! 48 items for $156.71.
My problem here is that brands like this are being propped up by people who don't need the money. They're gonna be just fine, but they take it because they want to make more money, and then they promote it to people who don't have the same amount of money that they do, and that disconnect, there's no way to overstate how fucked up that disconnect is. But presenting it to younger people who do just want to be able to have giant makeup rooms like you do, James Charles, saying that they can get 48 items for $150, why would they not? But let's see another clip from one of our other favorite multi-millionaires.
But I wanted one that was a more fun, bright color for the summertime to take to the beach with me, and I'm probably gonna leave this one at my beach house to use there, but this one is absolutely amazing for $9.
What did he say?
I'm sorry. Are you pretending like you care about spending $40 on a Stanley Cup so you need to buy the $9 tumbler from Temu while also talking about your fucking beach house? It's disgusting that people who are incredibly wealthy are speaking to everyday people and acting as if they would ever use a service like this because they're getting paid. And meanwhile, throughout this video, showing like over 20 items, just a bunch of shit. As a creator, this next part really bothers me, that people like Laura Lee and James Charles are talking about brands like Temu, because there are a lot of copycats on this website. Literally, I guarantee you, Laura Lee and James Charles' palette is probably on this website as a ripoff, as a copycat, as a dupe, whatever you want to call it. I've also seen videos where people reverse image search the images on Temu and then it comes up on a website somewhere else, literally just ripping images from the actual creator of the thing and then making something that looks kind of like it. I saw one where someone reverse image searched the literal image on Temu of a wedding dress. They found it on another website where that wedding dress was like $3,000 or something, and Temu was selling the same one for like $35 or something insane. So they're stealing the designs, making them in a really cheap, shitty way. But aside from stealing the designs, they're literally taking copyrighted photos, putting it on their website, making you think that that's the item that you're purchasing. And then when it shows up, it's a complete shitty, different material, different style, like than what you saw with the pictures online. And that to me is a scam. Like the question that a lot of people are asking is Temu a scam? When you're seeing a picture online of something that has embroidery on it, and when you get it in person, it's like a screen printed version of it, no, that's false advertising. And I do think it's really irresponsible of these creators to talk about how these things are so cheap, so you should shop online because it's so cheap, and never talking about why it's so cheap. So I just want to give you a quick rundown of the reasons that things are so cheap on Temu and the fact that it's not for no reason. Someone pays the price when you do things like this. This is a list I came up with. Not paying people, forcing people to sell things for cheaper and sell things to you at a loss, not paying people, taking sketchy shortcuts with harmful ingredients, contaminating water in lower socioeconomical areas. Basically, a lot of times when these things are manufactured with different regulations, don't have someone coming out and making sure that they're not contaminating water. And so oftentimes the cheapest and easiest thing to do to skirt that cost and get the lowest cost necessary is contaminate water in lower socioeconomic places. We see that happen a lot throughout the fast fashion industry. Same can be said for the production of most goods. So with that in mind, extracting things from the planet and taking advantage of the lower socioeconomic people who are in that area where we're taking materials from, right? So there's a way that you can mine materials to make all this shit and do it in a way that doesn't detrimentally harm the populations around. But there are also ways where you can do it, where you can come in and essentially just kick out the local population or take away their forms of income so that they can't live there, or contaminate their water or contaminate their ground soil. And then you have that area to extract whatever the fuck you want from it. And that's often what we see with people who cut costs and not following regulations. Obviously, if you're following regulations, a lot of times that requires hiring new people to make sure they know the regulations, to make sure they're implemented. It costs money to do audits. Take a lot of those shortcuts, and guess what? Your stupid little hand puppet gets cheaper. And of course, a huge way to cut costs is by just copycatting other artists, creators, the original people who made this stuff. By going to their websites, taking out their photography, you don't have to pay a photographer. You don't have to pay a model. You don't have to pay to do all of the work. So yes, that artificially lowers the cost. It's not for no reason. We have to acknowledge why temu is so cheap. We have to talk about why that's not always a good thing. We have to talk about why these things exist. If you're gonna make a fucking video talking about all the things that are so cheap, say why. And if you're not going to, I mean, just scrolling through the comments on James' video, most people are really disappointed that he decided to take on this partnership. But what does it matter? He still got the check. I think it's pretty obvious that I am passionate and fired up about this. And it all kind of goes back to that question of why do I care what other people do with their money? And the answer is because I care about people. I care about this planet. I care about the way that my actions impact others because I don't exist in a vacuum. The things that I do long term at a big scale impact other people. And I think everyone should care about that. And in this discussion where we talk about no ethical consumption under capitalism, where we're talking about things like who should be responsible for solving our environmental crises. Is it going to be corporations? Is it going to be governments? Do individuals have any role to play? I think the answer is we all have a role to play, and the easiest thing that you can do, the thing that I'm asking you to do, is just not fucking buy shit that you don't need. And in a few days, you probably won't even want. And that's why I care. I hope that you are a decent human and that you would care about that same thing too. And my pitch to you is not that you need to go buy all these expensive things to live a more sustainable life. My pitch to you is not even that you need to support sustainable brands that make all of these things. My pitch to you is just don't buy anything. And I think that's just about the cheapest and easiest thing we can all do to help the planet. So I hope you enjoyed this video. Well, I don't know if it was an enjoyable video, but I hope you learned something new. Share it with someone the next time they ask you what's wrong with temu.
Just don't understand.
And hopefully I will enlighten a few more people. So remember, until next time, do your best and advocate for the rest. Bye, guys.